call on this meeting, Young County Commissioners Court, the regular meeting, Monday, October 28th, 2013. It is 9:30 a.m. Make note that due notice was posted in the manner and for the time required for this meeting, and make note that all members of the court are present. And if it's convenient, please stand for invocations and pledges.
Let's pray. Father, we want to thank you for this day, Lord. We thank you for your blessings. Lord, we thank you for new day of mercy and grace. Father, we want to thank you for the rain that we received, for that we're about to, Father. Father, we just ask that you just go us today during the court session, Father. I just pray, Lord, that you give us wisdom, guidance, and direction in all that we say and all that we do, Father. Father, we ask you, Lord, to be with our citizens around, Lord. Be with those that's lost loved ones. We ask you to forgive us, Lord, where we failed you. These things we ask you in your precious name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you, Commissioner. Item number 3, public comments and presentations. Got one comment. Nobody else has any, I think. Our extension agent, Penny Warren Barron, gave birth last week, a little early. Don't remember what the name was, but it was a little early.
Hadley Francis.
Yeah, something like that. Francis. Had it on Thursday, I believe. Is that right?
Also,
Congratulations to Penny.
She's almost 9 pounds, so she's a big girl.
Excuse me?
She's almost 9 pounds, so she's a big girl.
Yeah.
her daddy's a big guy.
Yeah.
Also, to the ladies down in early voting registration, it says if anybody hadn't voted, you're reminding everybody to vote on the propositions.
9 propositions to look on back.
9 propositions. Some of them are very important propositions.
I do have a little synopsis of those that was sent late last week. Got it from Drew Springer. I don't know if everybody got one or if we just got one. Did everybody get one?
Drew's got that.
I got one. Okay, item number 4. If nobody else has any other presentations, I believe we have Lady Patricia Grove. She's going to give us a little presentation regarding energy audits. Welcome, Young County Commissioners Court.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed my time here at last night, so I got to see a little bit of your Tri-STEM, yes. And I do have an extra copy. Would you like it, or anyone else that needs a copy?
Here you go.
Yes, I'm with Tri-STEM, which is out of Hewitt, Texas, just a little suburb outside the city of Waco. And I had the opportunity to be at the Texas Association of Counties meeting with the commissioners and the judges, and we had Commissioner Wiley and Commissioner Sykes. And so we were talking about the service that Tri-STEM provides, which is utility bill audits. What specifically that means is that we audit utilities that you pay to consume to operate the county facilities. So it can be your electricity, it can include your telephone, water. If you have a significant amount of gas that you'd like to look at, we're looking at everything that goes into your county facilities. And what we do is we look for overcharges that may exist in those bills. You would like to think that you're paying for what you're getting, but that's not always the case. And it's not anything that's really done deliberately. It's just errors and corrections in the systems over the years. You've changed providers since deregulation. And oftentimes it's not real easy to find these things. So we're looking down at the account level to see if everything is appropriate for the accounts you have. And not all accounts are created equally, and that tends to be the way the utility providers will set up the accounts. Everything is the same. So what we're looking for is what makes your accounts unique, or make them special, that they maybe have certain discounts that could be applicable, that they have, that there may be exempt from fees, or things like that. And also we look at your usage to make sure that it's within the standard deviation for the type of building that it is, the size, the square footage, and the structure of the building. We currently serve many municipalities in Texas. Primarily, we do cities, and that's been where 90% of our work is done. But we started making contact with county officials through some of our references or referrals from cities, and found that y'all are having the same types of utility bill errors in your bills that the cities were. Over the last few years, we have obtained refunds of over $5 million for clients just in the state of Texas. Nationwide, you see about 60% of municipal utility users had errors in their bills. I've been doing this with Tri-State now just almost 4 years. There's only been one client of 75 that we have audited in the last 4 years that has not had an error that we could find. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's large, but it's a great time to look and make sure that you're not overcoming your bills. And when I explain to you kind of how it's set up, you'll see that it's real easy and user-friendly for what you guys are doing. Also, we correct errors as we find them, so you benefit from, as those corrections work their way into your system, lowering your bills in your current year as well. We refer to those as future savings. So for, again, the state of Texas over the last few years, $1,229,000 savings for those clients too. So it works both ways. There's really, like, so we look at everything and anything. When we talk about the way, and I heard Commissioner Sykes say this, we're very motivated to find errors in your bills because we don't get paid unless we find errors. We're a contingency fee-based company. So we look under every rock. I like to say that we look outside the box and things like this. And so but we're looking at things from your contracts that you all have negotiated. We don't get involved in that or what's changing in that, but we make sure that as you negotiate them, that's the way they're being billed. We do look at rates. We look at usage, baseline peaks and things like that that may result in higher demand charges or other things like that, but if they're incorrect, those demand charges are not valid. So we look at all of those types of things. If we'll turn to the second page, this is photos of the things that we've actually seen for meters in the bill. When we look at your bills, we run a 3-year history to start with, and when we see unexplained usages, we will then, on our time, come out and visit your locations with your permission and prearranged. If it's not something that we can handle with the facilities director over the phone and things like this, but these are actual meters that we found in the field. So you can tell these are not operated correctly to be able to report the usage. And I have been talking a little bit with Cheryl too, and we do a lot of work in the direction of the auditing department when we do these audits, and we just take it a step further. We like to say that we supplement what your auditing department is able to do because we are looking at such an in-depth level. Third page kind of gives you an idea that we're doing more than looking just beyond your rates, and this helps kind of illustrate the time and the detail to attention to detail that we make when we do our audits. $46,000 worth of overcharges because again, as I said, the contract that was negotiated with the client was not being billed properly for that particular client. And this is just an example of the one audit that we have worked. This is for electricity, natural gas, water, and sewer. The fourth bullet point down, we work with the state comptroller's office. There can be taxation issues. That takes an extra step in the audit process to make sure that we take care of that. The fifth bullet point down, this is not something that the utility companies will just automatically send you a refund for. It takes follow-up and often escalating it to another level of supervision to get the refunds back for the county in this case. And so if we stop short, this particular client would not gotten back $15,000 that additional funds. So we pursue this on a regular ongoing basis. And this explains why our audits usually take about 8 to 12 months for us to finish. And that's simply just not time, a lot of times that the auditing department has to devote to it. We work with PUC state regulations, and that's in the, after that particular $15,000 refund, you not only get back your refunds, you get back your interest. That goes back in it too. So they get shorted the client $1,752 that we went back and got from them. And that's another thing, you know, not only do we know what to look for, but we know what to do with it once we find it. We know we can calculate the refund back so that we know what you're supposed to do. If it's not that, then we go ahead and work forward on it. The next page is the results by city or county. A couple of ones that I can point out that are sort of in your area is Brownwood, Texas, refunds of $122,000 with annual savings of $21,571. Cleveland, Texas, $30,650 worth of refunds and savings of a little over $2,500. Fort Stockton, that's always one everybody likes to talk about. That's $944,000. So shows that when it comes to refunds, it really doesn't depend on the size of your county. If you look at Edwards County, they're significantly smaller than you all, but $14,000 worth of refunds. And we do have two new county clients, Lubbock County and Midland County, that we're in the process of auditing, and I don't think they are on the list yet. But you can see other cities kind of in the West Texas area, Odessa, Vegas, San Angelo, Snyder, all the same results. And then we also do a lot of work in the DFW area as well. Do y'all have any questions about the refund process or anything?
Have you actually done work for counties?
Yes, there's a couple of counties on the list. There is, as I mentioned, Edwards County, 14,278. Grayson and Harris County.
Jefferson did a lot.
Jefferson we did, yes.
But you have to go into the auditor's office and pull records of our receipts and our invoices to enter information.
Actually, you don't need to do that. It's a very simple process. There is a little bit of things that we have to get from your auditing department. But I looked online, and you guys actually have, through the utility reports that you have on your website, 99% of what we need right there. So the only thing we would have to do is have you pull a current month's telephone bill. We have access to everything else, and we can print those off for you, so you don't have to do that. We'll just do that for you. So that's what you need. And if you look at the next to last page, there is a list of the checklist that we have. We have a letter that usually the judge signs that says, we have your authorization to do a copy of that is attached to, but we provide that to Cheryl or the judge's secretary so that she can print it off on the letterhead, so that's easy. A list of your facilities, a list of your HP equipment, horsepower equipment, and a lot of that is just to see where you fall in the range compared to this is over 30 years of history that we have built in our audit processes to make sure that you're within the standard deviation. If you're not within that realm, we're going to ask why building that square footage we'd be using that much utilities. So really, you've got half of it done. We need a copy of your service agreements, a copy of your telephone bills, and we basically have everything else. There's a tax exempt form which should be pretty easy to take care of. A list of changed electric providers. So that's really all you need.
That was my only concern is tying up the auditor and her staff and trying to do this.
It's going to make it a lot easier with everything already out there.
It's online.
I had told her that stuff we have to pull it, sure have to wait for a couple of months anyway because we're kind of buried right now. But I was glad that she can get from them. Some of this other stuff, we already have inspiration to.
And if you look, and we do all the work from our office, we're not embedded in here, so we're not operating that. We may call with some questions, depending on who you direct us to for questions that we have about facilities or different things like that. But other than that, we work very independently in our own area. We provide reports back to whomever, usually the auditor, but whoever you assign to be our point of contact for this, so that you can go ahead and know what's going on. So we provide updates every, usually 8 to 12 weeks.
All of your fees come out of the prospective savings that you can make.
It's not actually from the savings. If you look at the contract that's in here, our fee is 49% of the refunds that we're able to get you. So, and it's a good time to make this statement too. You can build your audit any way that you want to. If you want to include telephone, if you want to include electric, gas, yes or no, whatever you decide to do there. And if there is some delay in getting the phone bills, we can start with the electric bill audit, and we can start the phone bill audit in December, anything like that you would like to do. With the telephone, there is an option for you to choose. As it stands now, everything that we do is no fee if we don't find a refund for you, and you keep 100% of the future savings. So those errors that we correct for you, we don't charge you for the savings of that. We're doing it pretty much as we file a claim for you, you get the refund back here, and then you'll get a bill from TriStar. There's no upfront payment at all. And we don't, we'll calculate the savings for you like we did on that sheet that we went over of the cities, but there's no charge for that. That's just basically part of the service. With telephone, there's a whole lot of things that you can do if you are at a point where for the county you are looking at ways you want to look in the future. Everything we do is historical. But for telephone only, we can select an option for future savings. So if you want to see, are you maximizing your telephone service, or are you using all the services that you are paying for? Are there ways that you can bundle it to save money? Those things like that. In that case, we do a traffic study. Our audit is a traffic study, which is an extensive analysis. They'll also make recommendations to the commissioners or to the auditing department, however that may work out. And for that, there is a fee of the same percentage, 49%, times the savings for only a period of 1 year. Okay, but that's only if you feel like that's something you want to look at for the county. Otherwise, everything is no refund, no fee. And if you do want that extra service, you would just indicate that on the contract. You would select future savings options. But it depends on what your needs are.
Patricia, how far back do you look bills?
We get the current month's bill from the county, and then we take the letter of authorization that you have, and we go back to the utility provider, and we request a 3-year history. The 3-year history will tell us if there's anything in that period of time that we want to investigate further. For those accounts, and only those accounts, we'll specifically go back further if we suspect that there's an error. So 3 years, but then in the state of Texas, you can actually get a refund back as far back as you can prove that it has been occurring, and plus interest. So we'll go back as far as we can possibly prove.
So basically, in a nutshell, this is costing us nothing.
You're only paying us out of money that's been sitting at the utility.
That's easy.
One of the things when I visited with you about that is the fact that we don't know. Auditor's office is an awful busy place, and we don't know when we enter into a contract if that contract actually gets entered into the billing system as we sign the contract. In fact, we go back as far as necessary to find that money. It seemed to me like a way to assure people who elected us that we're doing our fiduciary responsibilities, make sure the money we spend is properly spent. And I think that's one of the biggest assets, I think, of asking you to come in and look at our bills.
You're exactly right. You win either way. Either you come away knowing that you've been fairly treated by your utility providers. And we like to say we find the errors, only God knows why they're made. So we go at it with the fact that, these are just usually innocent mistakes, things that happen through lack of communication or different things like that. We don't assign any blame. We take very seriously your relationship with your utility providers. But you either find out that you've been treated fairly, or the opposite is that you get it corrected at this point to keep it from happening again and again and again years down the road.
How often do your companies where you find maybe that they've been in there overcharging a client? How often is there a contest there with the company?
Well, again, both parties usually like to get it right. Don't want to damage their relationship with you as their client either. But we do often have to, depending on the dollar value of the claim, escalate it up chain to get it done, and that's why we spend so much time working on these. As far as the conflict goes, really we don't see that too often because we don't let it get to that point. The types of errors that we find are very much black and white. Here's the contract, here's the bill. And we give them an opportunity to explain if there's a discrepancy to your satisfaction and to, as your consultant, to our satisfaction. But it's usually, we have our ducks in a row when we're filing a claim. We either have the backup legal documentation to it, the Public Utilities Commission guidelines, or something in writing for an explanation. So it usually doesn't get to any conflict point. They pretty much concede that it was a problem.
Patricia, in this list of counties and cities that you've worked for, there's another column called outstanding claims.
Yes.
Could you explain that column?
Sure. If an audit is not complete, there are times when we do have outstanding claims on there. For example, Brownwood, that $81,000 claim is the phone claim that I was referring to earlier, and that's been resolved in the last week or so. We just haven't updated the sheet.
Parker Heights, you found 135,000, there's 204,000 in outstanding claims.
And that's been just recently resolved too. Harker Heights built a new city hall and a new police station, a new police station and a new library. The utility company put a master meter outside outside the fire station or police station, and they're supposed to be serving both facilities. In error, they put another meter on the library, so they were actually doubling the meter usage for the library. And now that was one where the city manager actually got involved, and the Encore did not want to send back $204,000 to them, but the city manager, you are our client, we were going to follow the direction that he wanted us to, and he said, this is going to get fixed, and so that's what happened there. But we went out to look at the meter, and the poor guy from the utility company was there. He's like, well, I know this was right because I was here. And he said, well, they just open it up, let's see it. Oh, I don't have a key.
So the amount under refunds recovered for Harker Heights is going to increase by $204,000.
$204,000, right? Yes. These are just things that are in process.
I think I lost a job.
Well, everybody just kind of looked down when we opened it up. It's like, we don't want to make eye contact.
You go into this not wanting to make accusations, just want to go in and make sure things are right.
We just want to make sure things are right, and they typically do too.
Sure.
It's not that they're doing this for any malicious reason. It's just.
But you will help with recovery.
Our job is not done until you do the check.
Cheryl, do you have anything else to add?
What's your impression, Cheryl? You like it?
I think it'd be a good deal, and I told her that pretty soon we're going to be negotiating our electricity contract because our TXU contract runs out. And she said that doesn't affect them in any way. They don't get involved in that. And I think it'd be great.
Actually, that makes it a really good time because then you have a clean slate going forward. Yes. Your utility providers. Otherwise, it's going to be errors get transitioned to each new provider.
Yeah. Well, I really think that your field studies are going to be a benefit, especially to counties that have precinct bonding facilities, so that we can recognize whether or not we have a potential problem either in usage or in billing on those county bars. So I find it can be a very good management technique for all of us as commissioners and as the Commissioners Court managing the county's funds. And tax dollars are a premium. There's not as many of them as we used to have, and there's more coming out of our taxpayers' pockets. We need to make the best use of them, and I think you'll help us do that.
Pleasure of court here.
I would move that we enter into an agreement with TriStem to do this audit. Under the conditions that have just been explained to us.
Okay, we have a motion, second, motion Commissioner Sykes, second Commissioner Pruitt, to enter into an agreement with Price Film for energy audit. Any other discussion on that? All in favor? Carried.
Thank you guys very much. We look forward to working with you.
Where's the tri-stem come from?
It actually started as a electric modification equipment company back in the early 70s. And by working with the clients, they had decided that they could ask us about their bills. And we found that the electric modification, or the owner at that time found that the electric modification equipment was not, it's kind of a little bit ahead of its time. And so we really started focusing on the bills, and it's been in business now. for
So the
30
business
years.
evolved and the name stayed the same?
The name stayed the same.
Okay, do you have an idea on when you begin this?
As soon as we get the agreement, you have the original agreement in your packet, and you also have an original agreement on email. So as soon as we get that, we can start the electric audit with the letter of authorization and the bills that we can pull off of your off of the internet site. So usually within 10 days, we start the preliminary review. That's kind of the quick things that we know to look for. We'll start, the next thing we'll do will be to request the history information from your utility providers, and then we get into the in-depth. So it's usually about 2 months before we get into the really looking at meters and things like that, but we do a lot of work preparing for that in the first 2 months.
Do you come back and like update us on what's going on?
I can if you want. It's whatever you
Or
prefer.
tell Cheryl?
We usually, usually 8 to 12 weeks. It depends on how much things are moving on your account. We will email, if Cheryl is our primary contact, we'll email you every so often with a summary update if you want, and we will do a final report at the end. But if you would like for us to come back and meet the commissioners and
As long as we know what's going on. I mean, I'd like to update this.
Sure.
Just out of curiosity.
How many people does tri-stem have actively works each day on these accounts?
how many, we have 7 people that work in our office, and we multitask very well. But a lot of times this is a waiting game. You'll send a request for the historical electronic information, and it'll be 30 days before you follow up on it again. So you touch it, you're getting things moving, you follow up again in 30 days, and in between you're working on the other 50 or so audits that we have active.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank
guys. Look forward to working with you.
Mr. Brown, is that correct? Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, item number 5. Consider county clerk's minutes of previous meeting, October 15th. Is there any additions, deletions, or corrections?
And then we got correct on item number 10. Says here that with the amount down to 4,000 instead of 41.44.
Okay, that's 4,000, thank you.
Yes, sir. 4,000 a year. That's all I say.
Is there any other corrections that we made? Entertain the idea of approval of the minutes as corrected. I'll second that. Wiley, second Commissioner Sykes to approve as corrected. All in favor? Aye. Item number 6, county clerk financial report.
No action.
No action. Item number 7, consider auditor's budget amendments. And item number 8, payment of vouchers.
I have vouchers. I don't have any.
No budget amendments.
And you are doing so well being light on me. I've requested I'll lay back on the spending for a couple of months till we start getting money. The total is $47,074.80. And of that, the general, it was $45,225.85. So none of the commissioners have anything on there, so it's $600. Appreciate that.
So moved on vouchers.
Second.
Motion to Mr. Wiley, second Mr. Rogers. To approve vouchers payable as presented on payment.
And I did go ahead and give a partial payment on your quarterly money. That's what I had in here.
50-something
I've slept since then. Well, actually,
thousand, or 60.
I used $250,000, so I gave $62,500 to each commissioner, and then I'll end up giving the rest probably in December. I'll give you copies of the, if you want to know what you have in there right now, and print you copies to have. Copy of it, but,
Okay.
okay.
Item number 8, GASB 45 report, CapRisk for FY13.
Yes, Jim, I would in fact use already. Got this one done. This is actually for our 13-year, and this is something that Kenneth will have to have in his audit now. It refers to, it's about retirement, retirees and the obligation. There we have, and we've been doing it for us every year. Excuse me, he's still charging the same as $3,400. Something that we have to comply with now. So. Did all of you, there's a copy in the packet.
Actual accrual now.
This is approving this to do or approving it as presented?
Approving it as presented
It's been done.
and paying his $3,400.
So moved.
$3,400.
Yes, sir.
Motion by Commissioner Wiley, second by Commissioner Rogers to approve $3,400 for GASB 45 report that has been accomplished.
Yes.
It started about 6 years ago.
Has it been that long or has it been like?
It's right after the middle of jail.
Okay.
I think that's right.
Been a while, but
All in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Carried. Okay. Number 10, consider authorization on provisions TCDRS for FY 2014. That's all.
yeah, this is something that we just have to do every year, whether we're gonna stick with the rate they suggest or whether, we don't really have to turn this in until the middle of December, but I thought, we weren't planning on doing anything different, so we'll take and do this. So we would be paying the 28 starting January.
That's pretty well what we had set up in the budget anyway. Just stick with that right then.
Okay. What providing for
Retirement plan.
9.8%. That's their projection.
Yes. Starting January 1st.
Okay.
No, we just wait for what they
Motion for authorization of the provisions.
So moved.
Second. That's that. 9.8.
1.8.
All in favor? Item number 11 is interlocal agreement with Lubbock County for the regional public defender. And then package scheduled for that, I believe that's $3,805. We have been budgeted for. We got what, 14?
Do they send an invoice on that, or can I just send it back with the
It's
sign?
a contract, here,
Okay.
we'll execute.
Okay.
Actually, I think that yeah, giving the authorization to execute this contract. That, second. All in favor of entering into the agreement with Lubbock County for Regional Public Defender's Office at $3,805, all in favor? Carried. Okay, and item number 12 is consider CIRA website contract. It's another division that I think that we budgeted for and been previously explained. I think that's at $550 for the hosting of our website. Is there any comments, discussion? So moved.
Second.
Mr. Pruitt moves, Mr. Wiley. Second. To authorize that contract as presented, all in favor? Carried. Item number 13, consider NACO county membership dues for FY, well, that's actually for calendar year 2014. I guess we budgeted for that, I think, all of it's.
I think we have been, and I remember y'all discussed it last year, and to show the savings to the residents. And I still have, like I said, I don't know if these are restricted out in the community, but the
Specifically a prescription savings program for.
so anybody can pick this up and get on with this.
Costs $450 annually. Any discussion? Any motions?
So moved.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Wiley, second by Commissioner Pruitt, to enter into the NACO contract, $450 grad membership contract for prescription discounts for county residents. All in favor? Carried. Item number 14, consider modification to women's restrooms. I think every package there is Don Dorsey's estimate of $3,200. Since then, we had a little issue with the flush valve in the women's restroom downstairs. It, I don't know, it flushed for about an hour, I think.
Which time? Thursday it was really bad, it come up a lot.
Larry, and he said he replaced the flush valve on several times. I think the recommendation is to go with one of the automatic handicap type flush valve. Only thing about that is there's something over $1,000, I think.
That's what he was telling us the other day, but that would also help me even, it's, I guess it's handicap approved
I
now.
wasn't aware of it, but evidently that's happened a number of times where it's ran quite a bit. So,
Will the handicap valve keep it from doing that?
Well, it's the automatic, and that's what, we had a long discussion on this, and then Judge Wiley came in, we talked to Don Dorsey, and actually because the size of the thing on it doesn't make it handicap, but the room and stuff is good. The automatic flusher would just make it ADA, which we have one upstairs that is.
yeah, I found that quite puzzling.
Yes, I wanted to, I know we were pretty shocked at everything you have to go through to get it. But anyway, the automatic flusher would also make that one down there handicap.
Well,
So that's the true benefit of it.
well,
Because if that valve leaks, it leaks.
that particular restroom there will never be handicap accessible because it doesn't have 5 feet open waiting area in there to negotiate wheelchairs. So that's why the other restroom.
So we built this huge one upstairs.
So, but, you know, it's, I don't know if that cures the problem. It would for a while, I guess, but the valve,
Well, it's
valve's
like,
looking over $1,000.
right. It's likely to leak as a manual is. And how many times it flushes?
So,
I think there's other issues in there besides the valve flushing.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
When that valve flushes, it rattles the pipe from across up to the ceiling.
Right.
We'll get that issue resolved, we're gonna have a bigger problem than what we got.
An automatic handicap valve is not going to fix that problem.
Well, I think it would fix a lot of it because of the deal is the pressure on it, something you can let the pressure out or take, and that was a whole lot of it is from that. So I don't know if it would fix that rattling problem, but at least you could be setting that pressure one way or the
We're
other.
gonna have him address that issue whenever he does it anyway, so he can fix it, whatever it takes to fix it.
this particular bid includes some paint in the floor, in basement level women's restroom. And I think also, baby changer.
Upstairs, yeah.
Is that just upstairs?
Yeah, I think we just decided just to put one in, one of them because they were kind of expensive also, and as long as we have one, I think we talked about doing it in the upstairs restroom. Yeah, there's a little.
So this $3,200 bid, is that for the automatic handicap bathroom?
No.
No.
It includes, a baby changer, and I think that's in the upstairs, and some groundwork up there.
Yes, the marble up where they redone the stalls, and it's been like this, I guess there's a small strip of marble, and then you've got your big solid marble, and there's a space about like this in there, and whenever that restroom was remodeled, you know, we did look into fixing that, and that would take care of that. The bathroom downstairs, and Marcia, we went down, looked at, the lavatory is loose from the wall, I don't know if somebody's been setting the baby up there to change the, so as long as you have a baby changing table somewhere that they.
My only fear is they'll keep setting the baby up there because that's the first restroom in the door.
Yeah.
What we need to do is to.
You know what I'm saying? For
Just
women,
rename that lavatory, we need to change that lavatory up, so if somebody does set a kid on there, or.
it's just barely hanging on the wall now, the pipes is just holding it, it's
That's what I'm
broke
saying, we
loose.
need to fix something besides just rehanging it back in there.
And we can put, you know, we talked about him putting a changing table down there also.
This
Well,
includes
under a rack.
lavatory.
Yes, repair
The
it.
rack is good.
What they'll do is go in there in the wall and put those big braces that come up into the bottom of it, set it, and make
Right.
it safe.
So when you put the sink back like it was, reattach it,
The
and they had a
sink- the
baby
sink
changing
itself
table
is
on the
fine,
side
it's
of that
just-
room.
Right, the sink's fine, it just wasn't evidently.
Is it the upstairs that we're putting the baby changing table?
That's this bid, just one baby changer, and I think that's what's all up there.
What need a. What's up, that change?
He told us the other day, you remember?
Yeah, Audit.
Well, that's for that drought.
The drought, so the drought going
For a piece of plastic.
I mean, I guess we could put it downstairs instead of upstairs.
But the thing is, you're gonna need it in both places, because if you're on the court up there, in district court, there'll be several times you're gonna have kids up there in district court. But at the same time, you're gonna have other people down here, with families bringing in their juveniles, that's got babies that they're carrying in, they're gonna do the same thing.
And that's happening a lot. And the reason I know is I'm on the other side of the wall,
Yeah.
and I can hear them thumping and mama screaming, little kids, hold on, hold on. And it's, I mean, I don't know what's going
I
on there,
prefer spending
honestly.
money on a baby changing table than putting an automatic ADA flush valve in a non-ADA
Right.
restroom.
Well, let's do this though, but let's change the valve to where it's something that'll work properly.
Well, let's prepare the valve.
Yeah, what we do.
But let's don't overkill it by putting in something that,
Just put another deal on basic, I think, for the,
rather than $1,000 flush valve.
Right, something that's gonna be used a lot.
So have Don work and get with the
Yeah.
plumber and get
I'd like to
in.
talk to Don and ponder this situation before we spend taxpayer money on $1,000 flush valve.
They have one baby chamber, one upstairs and downstairs.
But also, and I told Cheryl this, that Don and I had talked about it, we had talked about the grout in the floor, because they're having a hard time, they can't clean it. And he said, and it goes all the way up the wall where the tile is, and I said, well, what would it take to clean it? And he said, the way it is now, evidently it wasn't sealed right, it wasn't prepared right to start with. He said that it can't, they'd have to go in and sand out the grooves, and that needs to be regrouted and sealed properly to ever be cleaned. So he said, basically, he said, there's a catch-22 there. In order to clean it right, you're gonna eat part of the grout out. So, and I know everybody's real concerned about the condition that's got into it. It is pretty bad.
pretty bad.
It's bad. So,
Let's also consider maybe, since there's not as much room in that one bathroom, putting that baby changer in the one next door that has more room. When you first walk in that corner right there, there's a lot more room right there than there is.
I don't know if you can, because that's gonna take away from, because that one, you do have the ADA, it is ADA.
It is
You do
ADA.
have the room, and I don't know if that, because it flips up, so I don't know if that.
but Jim, under that rack, in that one we're talking about, there's plenty of room. Where it sets in, we talked about, and he
And that's
measured,
a non-ADA compliant restaurant.
right, it's a non-ADA compliant, so
Whichever one makes the work best for
That's a good question about the ADA, does it still be ADA compliant after they change your tables?
It flips up, I
It
don't know
flips
why
up,
it changes
so-
that.
Right, it should. I mean, because you look at like malls and stuff like that.
They're using common sense on federal regulations here.
well, we got people trying to use that sink, set their kids up in it, I mean, like, that's crazy, I would have never thought about that.
We're probably looking close to
Well, the board's gonna be dirty.
$700.
Okay, we want to, entertain a motion, if understanding this right, to accept the provisions of this proposal and include an additional baby chamber and the repair of the existing flush valve. Would that be replaced with the same type of valve? Non-automatic.
Let's see if I'm on that road sheet.
Okay.
And fixing the floor. Of the floor, so.
Well, you make that motion.
Yes, sir.
Let's get this fixed.
Side, you second that motion?
Sure.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Well, after we get
Maybe
these,
about 2 for 1.
yeah, after we get these repairs done, can we see about getting the grout and stuff sealed and fixed on?
Cleaned up on the floor, because you've done a whole lot and left the dirty floor.
Is it dirty or is it dirty looking?
It's dirty. He said the grout is dirty deep, so he said it's
Hideous there.
hideous dirty.
It is dirty.
Hideous there.
You want to tour?
OxyClean wouldn't do it.
No, they've already tried that. They've been trying to bleach it. Just, it's
Can't
not.
wait.
CLS will do it?
Uh,
CLS will do it? CLS?
They had tried it all and it's,
Yeah, calcium lime.
he said they'd have to do they have to acid it, is what it needs to be done. And he said that'll eat down in the ground.
Yeah, you
That's
can get down the white grout and replace it,
Yes.
recover, regrab it.
It needs professional cleaning.
Yes,
And redone and sealed.
As this whole courthouse does.
Sealed so that when you do come back clean, it won't be hard to clean.
right. He said it needs to be sealed professionally because I had talked to Larry and he said, well, I put a sealer on it. it needs to be professionally sealed with a certain,
Is that for a later date?
Yeah, let's get
Yeah,
let's get all that.
That's a separate discussion.
Okay.
You won't do that, you have to get enough paint and everything anyway.
If we'll allow, let's move 18 up to the next, consider Bell Lamb Market Fair. Bids. Discussion items that's going to take place with the commissioner. A lot of them, I think, needs to leave, so with this item probably should be demand a little bit of attention for repair of the archway, the entrance at Fort Bell Lamb. That the moving company tried to go to the other side of the fort. I'll put that out. We have,
Is the moving company's line off the insurance payment?
well, they indicated that they would try to do that out of their,
They've been waiting on our bids and
Yeah, they've been waiting for
approvals.
us.
I don't know that it might be, I guess it probably depends on how much, on what we do here and how much that is, whether they'll pay it out of their own, whether they'll go through their insurance carrier.
Okay. Either way, it's not gonna cost the county any money to get this repaired,
But it's not supposed to be.
it should.
But, bid, Galvan Construction, he's got 2 bids in there. One of them's for, some iron work, I think, to replace the gate, and rehinge that gate as somewhat like it was. Or the other alternate bid, was to just do rock work. His total bid was $67.16 for his rock work, so it was $31.63. I think those are in your packet. Ruben Montoya, general contractor, he price was at $7,500. I don't know if that includes the iron work or if it's just the
there.
masonry. Then Brown Masonry had a bid in here, and I think that's strictly the rock work. $6,200, Danny Brown.
It says rebuild stone columns and steel supports.
The demo columns. I had entry for footing and rebuild stone columns, steel supports, and sign work to be performed by others. This includes labor plus sand and water. So that's, he'll put structures in there, but he won't do any iron work.
So he's only bidding part of the job.
Yeah.
Well, we're looking at somebody.
The way he constructed that sentence is,
You've got another bid here from Clerk Welding to, his quote here for the total package is $11,300, where he takes over the general contracting of it and oversees the, and that's in conjunction with, Denny Brown, rock work. And there's, kind of,
this includes Jenny Brown.
it's a combined bid between he and Brown.
Okay.
Where Birch is going to act as his bid is acting as a general contractor, if I read that right.
So this is around $6,200 for mostly fathers, $5,000.
There, whatever they've decided.
Right.
Got to bring on to give him a discount.
And that's putting the archway back in there,
Right.
building a whole new arch, using the existing letters if they will detach from the old structure. And that's mounting it not on columns, but outside the cost, so we said they're using 5.5 to 4.5 each round stock.
I'm gonna put them down in the car like it was before.
Excuse me?
I'm right down in the rock like it was before. So to have again, more than that.
I talked to Lee Wiley about this, and I mean, I like the way he was gonna do that.
How long has that archway been there? Has it got any historical significance?
1932, 1936, when that fort was rebuilt, including the wall around it. And my presumption, it doesn't look that old. You know, the archway that was put in there, and I'm going to assume that it was built at the same time.
Well, I thought I was told that the parkway came in the 60s. I can go for it on that.
I know whenever you talk about Fort Belknap, that's the first thing somebody notices, or that's the first thing their mind goes to is that archway.
It seems like this county and city are full of arches. Yeah.
So,
Lee Wiley should include that 62.
Right, it does.
So, turnkey job is 11,300.
And I think with Lee Wiley, there's more in it, heart-wise, too, than there would be for other ones. You know what I'm
There's
saying?
some value involved with getting.
Yes, I do. I think there's a lot of value.
I don't know if any of these others talked about repainting and refurbishing the sign either.
No, they didn't.
So there's some work there that's involved in Wiley's.
Looks like only one complete bid, and that's Lee Wiley's.
This one with a discussion, I'd make a motion to accept Lee Wiley's bid.
I say we take some copy of this. The moving company.
Ask for payment.
Ask for payment. They want to go and give us a check for it or what?
Have their insurance company writes a check, one of the two.
Either way.
This is well under state minimum liability limits for property damage, so it's not a big problem.
And I think from talking with the moving company, that's what they were just wanting to do anyway, just pay. I didn't really follow on there.
Well, they just do that out of pocket.
Well, yeah, in today's environment, while they might not want to do that, right? It doesn't matter as long as they're willing to pay.
As long as they pay it, we don't care how. As long as it's a form of check.
we're going to send this to the company that, you'll do that prior to the bid awarding or
I think we
provide that.
I think we have to.
We're gonna go ahead and award the bid.
Right.
Okay.
And the person that's gonna do the work, and then
Reimburse us.
tell them we need the money.
That's why I make a motion to accept Lee Wiley's bid, and then we send.
How is this coming out of money wise?
Not.
They're gonna pay for it.
Don't pay for it.
Surely we don't have to pay for it and get reimbursed, surely they'll just write the check.
If we award your contractors, we leave all of that will start on until we get our money.
Right. It shows here he's not supposed to start on until December anyway.
That's fine. Thank you.
So, we don't have the money within a month, which, that's what he's gonna be.
We'll award the contract, but not begin the work until we get our fruit funds.
Yes,
Okay, we've got most of the Mr. Pruitt, and a second.
I'll say.
Wiley. Accept bid from Lee Wiley First Welding for complete replacement of the complete rebuilding of the archway and entrance to Fort Belknap. $11,300. And that's to be presented to Fireman's Finest, I believe is the name of that company, moving company,
I think I have that number, that file on here.
for payment thereof, either through their company or through their insurance carrier. All in favor? Carried. Okay, item number 22, I'd like to move up to the next, and that's, I think, Commissioner Pruitt. Wanting a little different wording, we're going to discuss a little different wording on our road crossing permit.
sides.
Cause I,
Talking about the wording on that.
the wording,
I think that was what we're talking about. Yes.
Allowing the co-op to do this for nothing?
Yeah.
Well, I just did the red there, you see on the sheet, that's just the wording, change, not change, is addition more than anything else.
Is it, that line in red is what you added to that?
Yeah,
And may otherwise be waived for good cause shown?
yeah.
I don't mind having that in there if there's a special circumstance. But we're not charging the co-op, we're charging the customer. And they're passing it through. And we had a long discussion about this permit to begin with when we came up with it. We modified it, and we were all satisfied with it when we voted on it here at the table. They've had 5 permits, and 2 of them they said they had to complain on. It's not, I get that many complaints a week on my roads. Some justified, some aren't. And I just think that we haven't given this permit the time to concern ourselves with those kind of changes after the amount of work that we put into it. I believe that this court, once it makes a decision, needs to stand behind our decision, or we're going to continually be second guessed about our decisions.
Okay, that's fine, it was just a suggestion.
Yeah, I understand.
About modification to the,
See, I approved this permit the way it was stated because it did say permit fee may be refundable if applicable. You know, that's where I feel there's an area there that it can't
That
be
gives us some room
refunded to.
on the if applicable.
well,
Right.
to me, what that means there is if somebody comes in here, and gets a permit, pays the permit fee, and it says this permit's good for 90 days. If
And for some reason
6 months
they go-
goes by and they don't put that in,
They get the money back.
get their money back, I mean, that's what I think that provision.
But I voted on it to be able to give a Fort Belknap water customer their money back. That's why I voted on it, because that's the way I feel like it meant to me.
Yeah,
and
well,
I kind of see what you're saying, I mean, if they put it back and it's fine and dandy, I mean, the road looks good where they cut across it. I'm with Stacy on that. Why not give back to the consumer a little bit instead of take away from them, take.
We're only taking away from, we're only adding that cost to the user of that. And we discussed this. All of a sudden now the discussion is exactly the opposite of what it was when we passed this permit.
But the reason it was brought up, Mr. Stipes, is because of the major cross-country lines that are using these county roads to come and go for like months at a time, building these big roads in and just beating it down and beating it down, not a one-day cut.
Well, most of our occurrences have been those single one-day cuts.
But this whole issue was brought up by Commissioner Wiley because of that cross-country pipeline up there in the northeast part of his precinct.
But the only dissension that we have heard is from 2 customers that mentioned in Fort Belknap that it was awful expensive to get water to their side of the road when Fort Belknap was already charging them in excess of $3,000 to do it. And we're not charging Fort Belknap, it's a pass-through cost of that. Right. We don't know what's going to happen in that road.
And in reality, we're not really doing anything different from what Fort Belknap does whenever they're putting in a charge for future repair of the line. And that's exactly what they're charging that consumer whenever they put that in. They're giving them X amount of dollars for the future. In case something ever goes wrong with that line, they're gonna repair it. And we're doing the same thing, and in reality, we're doing this for future reference. So whenever that line sinks, or they have to come back and do a repair over it. See, that's the other thing is, on the repairing part of it, we don't have nothing in the vision about repairing. It's a one-time pay, is what it is.
Well, I'm thinking anyone here at this table had a utility went across their property. They would want damages for trenching and putting that line across, even though they put the land back like it came from, it still won't pay.
But the stipulation I've always had in, once they make that cut, that board, or that cut, they need to put in a piece of casing larger than the actual pipe that they're using. So next time they can come out here on the fence line, dig down and slip that pipe in and out where there won't be another board cut.
So you think we ought to add stipulations to how that cut is repaired?
Well,
That could cost all the way $500.
That's always been my request, if they're gonna cut it, they're gonna put a piece of casing in there.
Well, if we take the $500 permit fee for cutting the road, if we have to come back in there and repair it the way your stages, we'll have the money to do that.
We wouldn't have nothing to do with it.
Well, Bella might be in.
There you go.
I think,
You know, the permit calls for road cut permissible, marble only. If it's a over only, obviously there's gonna be a case. They're not gonna put a case in a road cut. That's part of the reason for that is the cuts narrow enough. Usually I think about 6 inches is about the widest cut is.
That's been my policy before this piece of paper is ever passed. They cut my road, they're gonna put a piece of casing in there where it won't be cut again. If that pipeline going through the road has to be replaced, well, they just slip it in and out on one side or the other.
probably go to where they tee off of it, pull it back through.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a smart thing to do.
That's what I've always done.
It also protects that piece of piping, but
From the traffic coming over the top of it.
because we all know that as material package is very around and on the road, from the load and plastic. Either way,
Okay, is there anybody want to modify this or maintain it as is?
I see that it's already been passed the way I want it passed, that I can refund that fee.
Well, no, you can refund it.
But I don't want to refund
You can break that refund.
it.
I think we've got to do the permit here, and I don't think that fee's exorbitant, considering what we've got to look at. And, once again, the cost of getting that pipe across that is not going to be, is going to pale in comparison to the cost of the water coming through it soon. So, I think it's fair.
So you like it where it is?
I like it the way it is. Now, that doesn't mean at such a time I won't rethink that, because there could be problems come up with everything we do, so.
I just think that's the way the taxpayer and the consumer, like, well, we always talk about saving the taxpayer money.
But that would
Save
be my
money.
suggestion too, Mike, it's £4 now, every time they do make a cut, that they put a piece of casing in.
I like that idea.
Good idea.
It is a good idea.
And I will certainly try to implement that. But that's it, now you're increasing Fort Belknap's cost. What about the taxpayer there? Okay,
I mean, it's,
as long as we understand it, okay. What about, I still think that's increasing the cost, but it's a good fix.
it's increasing for governance.
Do they charge?
Well, I know, that's what I'm getting now.
No bad.
Okay, no changes?
No changes.
Okay.
All that.
Okay, no action on that. So that permit
Remains the same.
remains the same. Okay, item number 15, I put this on here, it's on here twice, and there's quite a bit on here also. I put this one on here because I wanted to address primarily proposal, I guess, if you will, or prospect that Commissioner Sykes brought up a few weeks ago. And if memory serves me correctly, it was primarily the original United Walmart complex out here. It's now occupied mostly by Cross Difference Church and Tractor Supply Company, and there may be something else, but there's 17,000 square feet there.
Yes, sir.
If I recall right, the purchase price is $650,000, and also $4.50 rental or lease fee, which equates to about $8,000 per month. and the possibility maybe of lesser square feet than that, which would constitute a lesser monthly cost. Also involved there was mentioned a building across the street here on the west side of the square. It was vacant. I don't think I recall any prices.
I did, that whole presentation was not designed to give you specifics about where we should do what we need to do. It's to give you the idea that there were options in places in our community where we could do it and locate ourselves in a position where we wouldn't have to sustain the ongoing problems that that building has given us, and could give us temporary respite from those storage woes that we have currently. That building out there is obviously way too expensive for us to contemplate, but it does say that there are off-site storage facilities available in this community that we could use to place the documents that we have overflowing out of this courthouse.
So they were presented as viable options, if I recall.
No, sir. I presented the numbers. I asked those gentlemen to give me numbers so that I may take them to the Commissioner's Court. And I was fulfilling my obligation to them to go to the trouble of creating that proposal and bringing it to you. Where I asked today if we would consider that proposal, I would not consider that proposal. $100,000, $96,000 a year, and almost $700,000 in purchase price is outrageous and way beyond our means of what we're looking at. I mean, if we're going to spend that kind of ridiculous money, we may as well spend it on the jail building. Because that would build us a new building right over there. $100,000 payment for 4 or 5 years would build it.
So you're telling me those aren't viable options?
Those are examples of options. Those are not viable. Okay.
I just want to get that clarified.
Okay. And that's good.
I kind of took those when you presented.
And I was suggesting that we do that.
As viable options for
Yes,
us.
sir.
In lieu
The cost of those make those non-viable.
In lieu of spending any money on 12,000 square foot that we own.
Finding available storage and office space within our community is the viable concept that I wish to bring forward. Those particular options were not viable because of cost.
So, okay.
What about cost per unit?
Our cost per unit. We would do much better with money than renting a $100,000 a year building. That would be ridiculous. But that's the numbers they gave me. I told them I'd bring them to you. I gave them to the Commissioner's Court. Well, you can do a lot of things for that.
Well, you make $100,000 payment for 4 or 5 years, you got a brand new building, it's yours.
But I didn't know what they charged that building until I asked them.
Okay, that's fine. And I just wanted to get it clarified because I kind of regarded that as something that you had presented as being viable option.
No, sir.
For young county to pursue.
No, sir. I would sit in this chair and recommend that we don't spend that kind of money.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad to get that clarified. I was going to give you a kind of hypothetical analogy framed in
Well, that's.
a analytical type question.
I think, and those were purely, that's hypothetical, that was some real numbers out in the real world that we need to look at, and we obviously don't need 17,000 feet. We don't need to spend that kind of money on a storage facility, but finding empty space within our community might be a viable way to alleviate our problems.
Okay, that could be if we did not own 12,000 square feet. So, we own 12,000 square feet.
We're
don't
talking
make
about,
money on it.
I understand, we're talking about word viability again.
Okay. Viability. Obviously, I think we've got 12,000 square feet. It's good sound structure. It could be repurposed for a better use or another use. Yeah, it's going to take some money to do that. I see repurposing that building probably as a more viable option than anything else that we have. If we didn't own 12,000 square feet, it was that sound I can't agree, we wouldn't be looking for other things, but I just want to get that clarified.
The soundness of the building is not in question. It's the configuration and the construction type and the amount of money that you need to put into that building to repurpose it. That's the question. And I have no doubt the building would withstand any kind of calamity that might befall it, because it is a stout building. I just think that it is improperly configured. It would take way too much money. It is no more viable than renting 17,000 square feet. I mean, it's the same.
Well, I believe it is.
I think it's still too much money to spend on the
If
building.
they put that kind of value on that old building out there, you can't see any value on this 12,000 square foot over there.
No, I can't. That is a commercial building, and it's open and reconfigurable because it's nothing but open space. You can quickly put up partitions, rewire, make it technically up to date very quickly with very less expense than you can in that building.
At what cost? Well, 12,000 square feet is $8,000 a month. Then you're gonna have to spend that.
We don't want to consider an $8,000 a month building.
Okay, then that's not bad.
I said that.
Well, I misinterpreted.
I said that.
What do you want to happen with this building?
Well, as you well know, I mentioned in a meeting previous to this, I was asking about putting a pitched roof on that building to do that. Depends on the number that comes back on that estimate as to what we are going to do. Probably what I would like to see done with that building is that we stop this haranguing about this building and dispose of that building and get it off the square and stop thinking about it.
Okay,
And go forward from here.
what do you propose to do with the property?
It will belong to the county and it will be done as we need to have something done with it. So is there any reason that we would need to do something with the property quickly?
Well, I don't believe we have any place to put anybody else. If there were anybody else, then county government. If we needed another office space,
If we needed another office, how much office space are you talking about needing?
well, I think we need some right now that would probably equate to
I think I've expressed
a couple
the
thousand.
realization that I know that the county needs some extra space. We've outgrown this courthouse. And we need to start looking for options as to how to alleviate those problems.
Okay, the building's been sitting over there for the better part of 7 years.
Yes, sir, it has.
Pretty much deteriorating. There's been no maintenance, no activity other than the transporting of some records over there for random storage in the office spaces that could be used as offices. If I understand you right, you're for the demolition of that facility and its removal.
Yes, sir. I think that we can maybe create, there's no climate control over there for those records we're putting in there now. We could go to our precinct 1 yard and erect a storage facility for those records. And put climate control in there and use that facility on property that the county already uses. And let that be a viable option there. And I'm just brainstorming with you. There's lots of answers.
I don't need to go any further with this. I would guess is you want the demolition and removal of that building. Doesn't matter what.
With that phrase attached, I can't agree with what you say no matter what. I'm not going to spend $3 million removing it.
I wouldn't expect
It's
that.
not a no matter what. I'm not going to release toxins into the air destroying it. A lot of things no matter what we cover.
Well,
But as I sit here today, I see the most likely thing that needs to occur to that building is to remove it from the downtown square and stop messing with that building.
how are you going to do that?
I believe we had a quote to
Is that a demolition?
Yeah.
And removal?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got at least one. Do we have two?
Yes.
Okay, we've got two. There's one wants to demolish and remove that building. Do we have a third one?
Are you asking for a vote on this?
Well, I think that we need to have one, what are we gonna do with it?
Looking to put that formal motion?
Do you want, no, I don't want it gone.
Okay.
I've put my proposal out here. I think it's the most viable thing, that's available to the county government right now, is repurposing. Made that plea 3 times.
You know, we can run down this road, run down this road, run down this road. And I'm not going to disagree. You can throw as much money as you want to at anything. And it'll fix nearly anything. But at the same time, is that good common sense and good use of taxpayer money whenever you put money into something that you could take the same amount or less, and in the future, build something that would be more user-friendly, and also too less cost for any kind of utilities and more modern than what we have.
Well, I'm absolutely for less cost.
Okay,
The,
and that's been our whole point in this whole talk about this deal. That building served its purpose, and it wasn't very well. Did it serve its purpose? Did it serve the purpose? I think for less than $40,000, that building can be gone and ain't nothing but dirt left there. And to me, that's the best money spent on that deal, because in the future, when we come back here and build something else there, if we do that, the first thing that's going to be done is going to be gone. And I think the time, if we took the time we spent trying to rebuild that building and put it on something that would be more viable and useful, it'd already be done. And I have no attachments to that. I see things in that building right there, and you can go back and call back history, that building has been a disgrace to Young County more than once. Would you agree on that?
it hasn't been a problem. It wasn't the building that was the problem.
It wasn't the building.
No, sir.
Okay, what was it?
It was the concept of a federal agency that provided for how it was constructed and the operations of the criminal element and the refining of that rather than punishment through a rehabilitation process. And a whole different concept, the way they handle criminals. It didn't have anything to do with the building.
It's still in the building, though. It still happened within that building.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
That building, yes, it happened in that building.
Yeah. And how much more money was spent on that building to get it where the people couldn't lift up the tiles and go over and rip movies and come back?
There's been over $1 million spent on that building.
Exactly. There's been more money spent on that building than what it would actually cost to build a building that's viable and useful.
Okay, do you have a better plan?
You've got an idea, yes. But you gotta start with phase 1 and get done with phase 1, and then we go to phase 2.
What is phase 1?
Phase 1's getting rid of the building.
Okay.
So you've already spent $500,000 taxpayer money on there to get the original construction. You use taxpayer money and grants. So that taxpayer money back in 77, you're just throwing that away. It's just leftover, nothing between the two.
That money, if you take it, you look at it in perspective of what an accountant would look at it, or anybody else that owns a building, it's depreciated out. It's done its use, it's been useful, and its ability and its time, but you know what? We got to go on to the next future in that process.
The building's about 35 years old, maybe 35, 6 years old.
Exactly.
Not much difference in age than this original United Walmart complex.
Exactly.
There's not very much difference in that.
But at the same time, all your plumbing's that old, your electrical stuff's that old, everything in it's that old.
Okay.
But, it just don't make sense to throw good to bad. You know?
Out here, I just wanted to get clear on the viable options. I think we cleared that up between myself, and Mr. Sykes.
I was not making a proposal when I brought those numbers.
Okay, well, I misinterpreted that because it sounded like you were ranking them as viable options.
Many times we do things and people in our communities ask, well, did you check there, did you check there, did you check there? We want them to know that we're actively thinking and looking and searching for viable options. And some of those things we go off in the weeds and they're dead ends. And that is certainly a dead end because we not to spend that kind of money, taxpayer money on a building like that. But that being said, we can find a place to store those records that's over there now, and we can rent office space probably somewhere cheaper to put the overflow for office space here on the square somewhere if it needs to be on the square.
I mean, I think we're mainly talking about dog probation, right?
Well, I'm generally talking about managing and reusing and repurposing the assets that we have. Yeah, that does include the housing for probation department, and it includes the regular storage, and it includes the service, anything that we might need that facility for, or a facility for. We already own it, about 12,000 square feet in there.
But how much can, 12,000 square feet is what we can use?
Well, that's a.
Well, what's the whole building is, how many square feet?
About 12,000.
Okay. Well, you're gonna have what? Minus the jail part, I mean, most of that, we can get it used, can we?
Well, I suspect it would be, like,
So you're gonna have to remove all that.
I'll have the last 3 years of proposals that I've brought to the court has not been removing anything out there except the vestibules, possibly some of the sliding doors.
Right, that's what I'm talking about.
Leave the steel in there.
In recent years, have we disposed of county property that might have been used? Have we had county property that we've disposed of that could have been used for the purposes we're talking about?
I believe they could now be.
Did we not have the foresight at that time to keep those?
Necessarily having use for it at that time.
So we didn't see the fact that we were outgrowing this building then and stacking records and record rooms that we could have put in those buildings and used them. I believe at one time on this building that has the mural on the side of it over here,
We did.
it was sold.
That's
When we
correct.
could have moved probation officers into it, stored things in it.
So what's the point?
The point is that we failed to have an exit strategy on this old jail that is not viable and useful for anything other than a jail, while we had buildings that we sold and disposed of that we could have used.
Well, that is a good point, and that did need to be rolled
That
out
was my
at the time the $10 million was left. Yeah, that was the proper time to address what's going to happen to this facility. And it was tried, it did get brought up a little bit, but no one wanted to talk about that, just we to get out of it. So it's been sitting there for the better part of 7 years.
But the building I'm talking about would have been a great building for us to have repurposed at a lot less cost than what we are now.
Well, Mike, you're going back, I don't know how long that's been, 10, 12 years?
No, it's been about 6 years.
How long since we built the cage out in front of the parking lot that the community had touched down and talked about?
Well,
It's been 7 years now. 8 years,
the new jail's been out there for
7 years.
7 years. And that was put out there while it was being used as a minimum security facility for the jail. And it's set idle, it's set idle for 2 years, 3 years.
Maybe 2 years.
So we're talking 9 or 10 years.
So we had a more viable answer to that jail problem in our hands at one time and disposed of it. And we chose to continue to ignore the old jail building until the past 3 years. So
Is that good management?
I don't see it as such.
Okay.
We sold it, and we sold the one out on the Lubbock Highway, the same, pretty close at the same time. When Perry bought one, well, I know.
Well, that would be very useful.
Yeah.
That would be very useful right now.
What was the thinking when Commissioner's Court decided to make those savings to release?
I believe it was brought to the table to put that back on the tax roll.
Wow. The amount of taxes being collected is not nearly as much as the cost to improve that jail is.
I'm probably pretty sure that, at that time, Commissioner Spivey probably was looking over getting that back on tax roll. Both properties.
And the commissioners agreed with him that it was done.
I'm through with item number 15 unless anybody else has any comments regarding it. I wanted to get that straight, whether
There has been no proposals to rent or otherwise obtain.
I didn't say proposals, I said viable options.
There are viable options, that's not one of them.
Okay.
I think that address is 505. This side's odd.
Okay.
It's 505. The electric company had it messed up. Maybe where that.
Okay, no action on 15. Item number 16, discuss, consider, and erecting a new monument, Courthouse Lawn, in Wiley.
Before we start that, please, gentlemen, we have 5 minutes.
I need to go here pretty quick. Can we hear this?
Yeah, that's what we have 5
Yeah.
more minutes, please, that works.
Something I've been thinking on here, just going to bounce it off the court, to see most of our courthouses around the country, even in our even in Austin, and the capital stuff, the 10 Commandments is on the court lawn somewhere or inside the courthouse. And I was looking, and we need to think about maybe what the court's desire is, maybe about putting them down there as you're walking up the steps here. In that spot right there where the grass is. They got some real nice rock or whatever. Yeah. Let's see if they can see. Pine tree, did somebody planted there one time?
You can send that pine tree to a greater reward, man.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea on how much that might cost you?
So I put it on the top. Before I went through with that, I knew I wanted to double check. See what the court's desire would be on something like that. I've got a picture that I can look at.
That's a good idea.
The hotel I stayed at in Atlanta the other day has it in their entry, but big
Right there. Something of that nature.
For this.
That's what it's talking about.
their coordinator.
Oh, it's not your courthouse.
Is it a government building?
No, it's not government building. But the ones I've seen, it's been in rock like that. But, with the two tablets like that, that's where they was driven. But, I can get some prices and find out from there. If the court desire. I just think that'd be neat to put that.
As a moral compass for our community to live by, there is nothing better than those 10 rules. And I see no reason that we shouldn't explore the cost and option of doing that in front of our courthouse. It's the place for which our country was founded, and I find no reason to not reflect that.
I think it probably ought to be framed in some beneficial organization might want to do that. It would fund that project, I think would be much more appropriate for us to give.
Then permission to put their monuments. No problem with that. Maybe collectively, we could ask the churches to form an organization by which they collected the money to put it on. I'm sure the community would probably come up with support for us at that time. we simply allow it to be placed.
I like that. That's good.
Okay. I'll work on that.
That'd be easy.
I just don't have any problem at all with it. I think it'd be more appropriate if it were funded by some benevolent organization or some group that was put together that would fund that project and us give our blessings to it.
Commissioner Wiley, were you talking about removing that contract?
I think you've done a good job.
I think that if we remove that pine tree, that we could very well move the flagpole off the top of this courthouse building, place it on the ground where it'd be much easier to maintain our symbol of the United States flag on that flagpole. And it would probably make a much better place for that by removing that tree.
Do that. It is difficult to go up there on the roof, down off the roof. Get that.
That's the problem right now, it looks like half a mess a lot of times.
But it's been up there a long time, and that might cause a little.
They make a flagpole that there's not a lanyard. Pull it up and down. It's electric. It's got a way on the bottom of it. You just got the bottom on the bottom. You turn the key, it comes down.
Well, we already have a rather nice flagpole over at the old law enforcement center that could be used,
Yeah.
repurposed for that.
Exactly.
Excuse me, and proceed to close it.
Best of luck to you. Great work, sir.
Have good fortune.
Results in nothing.
You need your 5 minutes.
Yes. Camera rolling? Okay, good. Let's see. Item number 19, I believe is where we are. Is that 17? Yeah, okay. Gotcha. Mr. Chief Wiley, item 17, consider rejected.
Didn't realize that you had anything on the deal, right? She did mention. But the thing that makes the jail destruction or demolishing, whatever you want to call it, eliminating, makes it enticing and cost beneficial, has to do with the price of what metal is. And I think that we need to take and consider about doing something with that pretty quick before metal decides to go the other way. Metal goes the other way, and it's not going to be as viable or cost beneficial to do it, because that's one of the things that's enticing, to make it so cheap to get rid of it.
That was understandable. According to the quote, I understood that perfectly, that it included all of the salaries
Yes.
that there would be involved in that, which I think probably is substantial. I don't know what it would cost if that wasn't included.
It's pretty expensive.
I'm absolutely not in favor of this construction, as you all know. But this is on here as a discuss, consider, if we want to make any.
I think we need to go ahead and go forward with it myself, get the process going, and get it taken care of before the end of the year.
Are you that in motion?
I think that is a good motion.
That is for, if you'll state the motion, please.
That is for the complete removal of the complete building and slab back down to original dirt of the hotel.
Demolition and removal,
Demolition and removal. Back
including
down
the
to dirt,
foundation.
including the foundation.
I'll second that.
I definitely 100% agree that we need storage space and that we need buildings for adult probation, emergency management, elections administrator. And I don't know if that building over there would be set for that. I just want you to know that, I mean, I'm with you 100% on that we need space, and I think all these gentlemen are. But I think if we get a new building that will be designed specifically for those people, it would make it so much better for them.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second for the demolition and removal, including the foundation of the 505 previous law enforcement facility. I think that is a tremendous error of the court. I think it's a very unwise decision if it passes. I certainly don't think it's time for that. I believe that that's not using taxpayer dollars wisely. So we might as well call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that's, I'm absolutely going to be on the record book as opposing that.
Well, Judge Thread is just on the record book is not voting that, so I understand how different points of view are reflected at this commissioner's court. And we've just seen one of those. And I hope, pray that we made the right decision. As I'm sure we thought we were making right decisions in the past and not having a plan for that building all along and using other buildings that we got to. But here we go.
Okay, is there any date for the commencement of that operation?
Get with the people that's put the bid in on it.
Very well.
It is under the $50,000 mark, too, so
How much is it?
30-something thousand.
34, 7,
Something.
39.
Pay that portion out of it out of contingency?
Well, there was money left over in that account, of $7,000.
We've also got some roof repair money that we will not need to repair roof with that we can use.
We'll just wait.
Please forgive the
Okay, now we'll go to item number 19.
Can I ask something?
Yes, sir.
What are we gonna do when it's gone? We have some record store over there now they're not gonna get destroyed with the building, I would hope.
Of course not, sir.
Where are they gonna go and where the other records and office space are gonna be?
That's
Have you got a plan?
First off, there is no office space. Nobody's officing in it now. There is some records that are stored there that can be moved to another facility that's at least as well controlled and secure as where it is now.
Were the officers taken out at some point in time?
People were taken out of it.
There used to be officers in there. The police department,
Used to be, is the proper term, yes, sir.
when they took them out,
The cubicles, all the floor space is still there. There's no one officing in there now.
well, there was nobody, it's been vacant for years. Because we wouldn't do anything about it.
There is office space there, and no one is occupying it, except records are being obtained, stored in those offices.
Oh, the records are being stored there?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so,
Yes, sir.
Please forgive the redundancy of this question, but mine is Stacy Rogers, this motion passed 3-1, is that right? And so this is definitely going to happen, the demolition of the old jail, okay? By the end of this year?
Yes. If they fit in their budget, fit in their time.
I mean, I don't know if we rented one of those storage containers, big old metal storage containers.
That is how to do it.
Like, you know, put it up to your yard.
But a bunch of stuff in there that's in there now can stay in there, and all this stuff off. Those things and things of that nature.
There'll be some logistics involved.
Are we ready to move 19? Consider sale of various vehicles and equipment at public auction. Mr. Pruitt?
Yes. I got bought a new water truck. I'm selling the old one. I was gonna put it in Burgess's cell out there, bunker. November the 23rd.
Third,
Yeah.
23rd.
So I was gonna put that in there, and the pickup from Fort Belknap, that's gonna go to the DA. I'm gonna actually give that to the Mason auction. So.
Talking about talk on
Another pickup, the old pickup from Fort Belknap.
Truck minus the top.
it. Okay, that's going to Mason's.
The old white pickup,
Oh,
the old white pickup from the Ford,
yeah.
is gonna go to the Mason auction.
When is that?
March.
March. And then the DA's pickup is already out there. That's where I'm going.
Okay, why don't you, reserve that pickup then for,
Yeah, I was gonna hold it. Do what now?
for a later meeting?
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's fine. I'm gonna keep that out of our yard.
So right now, just the old water truck.
Yeah, just the old water truck's gonna be in the.
I need to pull the title on that.
Okay, is there any other vehicles or equipment that might need to go in that auction? That's a pretty good place to.
It is.
Get rid of the things that they usually have a pretty good gathering of clientele there. It's something that needs to be advertised. We'll have to advertise what's going out there, and what will be available at that auction. It'll have to be put in the paper, or at least a
Just
couple
the
of
old
weeks.
water truck.
That's it, this water truck.
What model is that?
90.
I'll pull the title on it and the details.
That's the 23rd.
November.
Okay.
Our next meeting will be, what?
On Saturday.
Next meeting will be on the 12th. So it won't be enough time. That's the only thing. We'll need to get that in the paper, probably by the first of the week.
We're getting
Get
the
that
weekend,
advertised properly.
get in Sunday's paper.
Anybody else got anything else that they can get in there? Equipment wise.
I think the top of the DA's pickup.
Well,
I mean, we could just get that to the Mason thing too, because they probably didn't work.
No, yeah, not with the new ones that they had, like we put on the DA's pickup that are so much
Maybe
better.
worth $50.
I know.
And so we're just gonna act on this, equipment for the,
The water truck.
The old water.
purchase sale, and that's gonna be
Right.
water truck.
1900 water truck.
And I'll just
I had
take-
Stacy if he wanted it. He said he did, and then he said he didn't, so.
So decided no.
Is it Chevrolet or?
Yeah.
GMC?
Chevy.
Chevrolet.
Go we have.
Yeah. That used to belong to, that came along to Supply originally,
Mhm.
Prime Construction.
Done some work.
Slightly.
Prime Construction.
Slightly.
I'll work up a little ad, we'll run it in Sunday and maybe next Wednesday or something.
Motion, Mr. Pruitt, we have a second.
Second.
Second with Mr. Wiley, and if that's the only piece of equipment that's in there. All in favor? Aye. 4-0. Mr. Rogers not present. That will need to be advertised, and get the identifying criteria, put it in the paper, need to be in there by next Wednesday, I suppose.
I can run it too, I can run it Sundays and Wednesdays, get it in 2 papers.
Yeah, I think it can be on this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday. But it needs to be advertised, run 2 weeks and 2 editions. Okay. Item number 20, discuss quotes for rock pits, Mr. Pruitt.
And I know that the bidding process for the rock is coming up, the rock is coming up next month, it should be, is that correct?
I think we, Mr. Sampson and I talked about it, putting it on the agenda for the 12th of November, to consider going out and open bids. I think on December 9th.
Yeah, that's what we used to do. Is
We'll have to advertise for at least 2 weeks, and don't need to do that too early, but they need to be effective for the 1st of January.
Well, what I was gonna get at is, I know we got one here at the mail pit that just opened up, and there's one in Breckenridge that just opened up for me, which makes it so much better. Instead of going 75, 80 mile round trip for me, I got a 40 mile round trip using Breckenridge pit. So I'll go ahead.
Is it the temporary pit, or is it one that's going to be opened up permanently?
Yeah, it's a new one, just opened up permanently. It's off 180 right there at the Y, coming into Breckenridge. So it's right there, just out of town, about a mile.
Who's going to be the operator?
We've actually hauled the load out of there to see what it looked like. And I had the card, and I forgot the card. But it's some good looking, it's good material. But anyway, my whole point is I can make a 40 mile round trip to an 80 mile round trip. And I know we've got only one person right now that does that. And it makes more sense for me to haul from Breckenridge to Jones Road than from Bryce and Jones Road, you know what I'm saying, basically? So I think we need to open it up to where it's almost like the fuel thing, you know?
It'll be a bid process.
I'll get the address and send to you.
I got it,
I
okay.
think we have it. And send you both the new ones and Zachary for the next year.
There is one, I think they're in operation down across the highway from the Perry pit.
Mayo.
Anyway,
Yeah.
how does the bid process handle when proximity has to be included into the cost of the material?
Well, it's been handled just kind of a whole lot like the fuel deal has, and if there's been more than one bid, then all the bids have been accepted.
All of them were accepted.
So we used to have 2 pits, is that
Now,
right?
there used to be BNS, which was over north of Jacksboro, and then Perry, which, whenever that moved, and with utilizing it, or they got all that there was there, they moved to the lease bid. That was Burkett Enterprises, and this one Burkett's umbrella company, Mark Ellis.
So rather than reject all bids, we accepted all bids.
Yeah.
And I think that just makes sense, because if I want to haul rock to Bullock Road, it's a lot closer to use Zach's pit than if I'm going to haul Murray Circle, Jones Road, which sure is a lot easier than Breckenridge. So it's saving money and time.
For Burkett Enterprise or Mark Ellis, they also bought BNS facility, and they bought a facility over Newcastle, west of Newcastle. So they pretty well have known the source for a couple, 2 or 3 years. This will be a provision for you accept whatever bid you want to say.
We'll send bid letters.
Yeah, we're just asking to be free to purchase the rock materials wherever it's most cost efficient for our taxpayers.
Exactly.
You may.
That was it.
Discussion, that was just discussion.
Discussion, yeah. Yes, no action. Just FYI.
That pit over there, used to be a temporary pit over at Breckenridge, and it was also a Burkett Enterprise, or Burkett took their both facilities over there anyway, and not been a different owner, but they crushed rock periodically over there. Okay, item number 21.
I have-
Consider any action that might be necessary today for the county energy transportation investments.
I don't know of anything we need to do today, however, I am starting to understand better the function of the CETRZ. Once you set the TRZ in the county, that TRZ will be alive and operable for 10 years. And the amount of tax rate given to that TRZ, the appreciation of values in that TRZ will go to that TRZ for the next 10 years. Okay, so if we had, say $200 million worth of appraised value there, if we had $206 million the next tax year, the tax percentage you got the TRZ on that $6 million would go into the TRZ. It's just you need to know the appreciation of the property within that TRZ would be added to that TRZ and the tax rate that we schedule that TRZ for.
Does it have to have an established tax rate to it?
It has to have one to it. Now, whether the tax rate can be 0 or not, I don't know. Those are some of the things I'm still trying to flesh out. Does Jimmy have any better?
Is there also, there's an amount that you can only spend out of that account too per year? Is that correct too?
I don't know about that. I do know that any money placed in that TRZ as a result of its creation has to be spent on road projects
Yeah, only on that.
and named projects.
Yeah.
Is the tax rate incorporated into the total M&O rate, or is it added to the M&O rate?
I don't think it has anything to do with the M&O rate. I don't think it affects the M&O rate at all. It's the way they explained to us down there when we should in Galveston.
Is it additional tax that's going to have to be paid?
No, it's not additional tax. In other words, when you establish this, like what Mike said, it's already got a tax rate on it. If they come in there and raise that from 200 million to 200.6, all you're going to be doing is getting money, a percentage of the money off of the extra money that was added to it, like the 6 million. You see, so it's not an added tax. It's not like a emergency district tax that you vote on and you add 5% to. It's like a sales tax deal. It's not the same thing.
So if the total value of the county increased, but all of the increase was due in that reinvestment zone, then that portion of the increase would go to the reinvestment zone.
Whatever you take and put in your TRZ, only in that TRZ that you have mapped out. It's only in that area. It doesn't have anything to do with your incorporated areas of your communities and all that, but it's just in that area right there.
But any increase goes to that fund, it doesn't go to the general fund.
No.
From the time that it's established.
I think the percentage of it, the other part of it goes to the general fund.
Well, most of it would go to general fund.
Most of it
It'd be a
is.
very small amount going to the TRZ.
Very
We'll
small.
go to the TRZ.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, from what I understand, of course, there's going to be a TAC workshop on this, is that the amount that we're going to contribute in kind, that 20%, will be figured against our tax rate, and that will be the percentage going into the TRZ. Let's say that we spend $20,000. Whatever $20,000 is, that's a percentage of our revenues and tax rate. That's what the tax rate is TRZ. So it could be point, a lot of zeros, right? I think we can say, well, 1/10 of 1% was $97,000 during our budget period. So if we put $20,000 in, it would be 0.02%, basically, tax rate. I believe I understand that correctly. But then again, there's still a learning curve I was walking up.
Okay, is there anything that we need to do with regard to that, or anything that needs to be discussed other than commissioners being
I don't think so. So it's
the
in
road report?
road report. You gotta need to be getting together your road projects and estimating them.
Clear projects that might be applicable.
Right.
And our report needs to be due before the end of this year anyway.
Representative Springer informed me that most of his counties, rural counties, were putting the county into a single TRZ, but with Commissioner Rogers not here, he's got some concerns about that. Whereas we're making one TRZ the entire county, is it fair that the whole county's paying for projects that are located in one particular section of the county? Those kind of debates will have to be done before we can reconcile how we want to measure all the TRZs. Most folks are using the county tax assessor appraisal district to have to set the needs and bounds of the TRZs.
I think Mr. Clerk will be at our meeting we have in a couple of weeks anyway.
And that's all I have there.
Don't actually get together respective projects.
TxDOT will be all that eager to help, but they will be nice folks over there. They'll have that.
It's kind of a complicated thing.
Getting off square one is a big problem.
It can't be interested to know about how much we, in ballpark area, we can receive on this, so we can see how it works.
Well, the adding or dedicating of the tax rate in consideration of that is
That's,
that's something to think about, something.
I don't want to improperly consider that, and
Yes.
as you said, have it be something we regret doing later on.
But at the
Make sure we got the most information we have.
At the same time, you know, the monies that they got this time during session, probably 2 more years, if this goes properly, they're probably going to receive more money. It's what is the gist that we got from what we heard Jim Allison and some of the other people that headed this thing up to start with.
And you must remember that's a double-edged sword,
Yes.
but the more money they give you, the more your portion of that becomes.
That's right.
It's an ongoing thing for 10 years, can't be renewed for
5 years.
additional
5 years.
term. And that's
No,
probably.
I don't know if that 5 years to 15 years, whether you have to reestablish the TRZ again in order to continue it, I don't know that. Well, it can be, continues to be renewed for 5 years.
Well, if you got a lot of oil field activity, I think it's specifically regulated under the terms of oil field activity. So, you know, there may be a year, 2 or 3 that you have a lot of oil field activity in one location, and it goes away and maybe in the opposite part of the county develops. So there'd be application of big projects at that time. Complicated.
Challenging.
When they're giving money back to you, they won't make it.
Okay, any other discussions here? Any other decisions got to consider there, any considerations?
Need more information.
Okay, we've spoken about item number 22. Item number 23, Commissioner Science, discuss the northeast corner drain repair.
Yes, sir. As you know, when we started repairing the men's restrooms downstairs, we discovered a considerable water leak under that floor that was coming most likely from the French drain. In order to ascertain what the repair is necessary to stop that, we've got to find out where it's occurring. So we are going to do as we did similarly to the northwest corner. We're going to dig out on top of that French drain in front of the men's bathroom windows and find out, dig down to the French drain and find out what's causing that. I've discussed that. I noticed there's been a hole of some sort dug behind the trees there by the steps. I don't know why it was dug, but it's a pretty good sized hole. The water's starting to go down in that hole also. Does anyone know anything about that?
I think
Was that an exploratory hole to try to find where that water's coming from?
our janitor done that.
Okay.
They went by new shovels.
Thank you. At any rate, we need to accomplish that. We had intended to start today, but then we realized that we've got early voting going still, and we're still working on windows on that end. So we will probably wait till the beginning of next week, or at least after the election, to start that. Probably after November 5th. that right? And accomplish that. So, and while we're doing that, I don't know if you've noticed the care that we are giving our courthouse flower beds and landscape, but it lacks a little bit in some areas so far as the vegetation and also the watering of those flower beds have greatly increased our cost for these repairs because of the water needs the building and needs to have something. Don Dorsey recommended that when I do this excavation that we take and cap off the irrigation system that's in those flower beds.
Should be.
There's a 360-degree head in the window of that men's restroom. Right entirely around there. Continues. No wonder they're rusting out. You know, so.
I think I suggested that one.
Well, would the court consider entertaining an idea to do something different with the landscape around the courthouse?
I'm not saying desert scene kind of.
That's what I'm
saying. Rock.
Uh,
Low maintenance or no maintenance shrubbery.
Low or no, yes. So while we're doing this, we're going to remove the front flower beds and put some sort of fabric or plastic down under there and put some crushed stone to eliminate the need for water.
That's free stone. So, there's already some big rocks.
I entertain all, you know, do we need to form a committee of some sort to do this, or can we just do this?
Just do it.
Oh, okay. The courthouse is our bastion, so
Yes.
we get responsibility for doing it.
Community, but I don't think there's any necessary, I don't think it's necessary to put together a bid.
Okay. Then we will begin to change the appearance, the recommendation or the consideration of a new monument out front, and removal of the flagpole, kind of goes along with all this redoing the face of the courthouse. So it's probably time for that kind of change. So we will precipitate that, and I will be discussing it with each and every one of you, as well as anyone other interested in parties to do that. Thank you.
No action,
Just let you know what's going on.
just discussion, okay. Anything to consider with regard to burn restrictions?
How about this moment?
No action. Please let us adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Roll. You're the council president.
I've got change over there.